Hello, friends. Welcome to Crafting for Profit Live. Today, we're going to be diving into a topic so many of you ask about. I feel like this is one of the most common questions we get. How do you balance running a full-time job and your small business? This is a place that a lot of people are in, and it's not easy, but it is possible. And today, we have a fantastic guest to show us how it's done.
So, before we get into today's episode, we wanted to share that Sublimation Camp is coming up. Tickets are on sale now, and you can grab a free ticket. So, if you're interested in learning more about sublimation crafting, other types of craft printers, we're hosting a huge event. So, we have 17 teachers, 6 brands, more than 30 classes, all about different types of crafting printers. And I really think you're going to love it. We're really excited about this one.
So all you have to do to get your free ticket, yes, it is a free event. All you have to do is go to sublimationcamp.com. Sublimation Camp is going to be running July 17th through 19th, and it is a free event those 3 days. We will also give you the option to buy the All Access Pass, which gives you access for a full year, plus a whole bunch of other really great bonuses. We have giveaways, we have all sorts of stuff. So go ahead and go to sublimationcamp.com, and you can grab your free ticket there.
So now let's get to the podcast. So we are joined by Jami Hofmann of Jami Creates. She's a finance manager by day and runs her crafty business at night. We're so glad she's here because she's an inspiration when it comes to making it all work and running that business in the margins.
So this episode has been pre-recorded. So if you're watching on the live premiere on YouTube, we are over in the chat, so you can chat with us, ask those questions there. If you are listening on the podcast or if you're listening later on YouTube, you can go ahead and ask us questions in a form. We have a form down at the bottom of the podcast notes and the YouTube description for any questions that you might have.
All right, so Jami, let's get started. First of all, can you tell us a little about yourself, your full-time job, and how Jami Creates came to life?
Well, I am happily married. I am a dog mom. She's basically my child. I live in Maryland, so I'm an East Coast girl all the way. You said it earlier, but by day, I'm a finance manager for a supply chain consulting firm. Typically, when I tell people that, there are no follow-up questions. uh, Basically, I tell people I just get paid to play in Excel all day long, which honestly, I truly, truly love. I knew finance numbers was something I always wanted to go into. And I'm just very fortunate to work for a company now that truly values their employees, which will probably make my work-life balance a lot better. So working for a good company does help. A little bit about Jami Creates. So started as a COVID project. I had a lot of new free time and I wanted to get back into art. It was something I loved as a kid growing up. So I jumped into digital art. I got an iPad and I started drawing floral arrangements. I had some friends say, "Hey, your art's pretty good. You could do something with this." And I was like, what the heck do I do? So I started with 4 sticker designs, and that's all I had originally to start to sell. And just to put it in perspective, I checked yesterday and I now have 135 sticker designs. But that's over the course of 5 years. So definitely, it's not an overnight thing. It's definitely more of like a slow, sustainable growth type of thing. But that's where we're at today.
Okay, so what does a typical day look like for you? How do you structure your life between your job duties? Do you go into an office? Do you work from home? And then how do you run your small business in those margins?
I'm very fortunate to work from home, which is a lot of the reason why I feel like I have some balance. So typically I start my day at 6:15. I'm a very much a creature of habit and I like a good schedule. Even on the weekend, my alarm goes off at 6:15 in the morning. Let the dog out. I'll check my notifications. And then I start my day getting ready for the day, make breakfast. I play Wordle every day and I send it to my friends and my family. So that is a key part of my morning routine. I try to start my day at 8 o'clock. And when I say start my day, that means walk downstairs to my home office, which is a mixture of my work setup, but is also my small business office. So it's all one and the same, which allows me to kind of switch between things when I have the time. I eat lunch every day at 12 o'clock with my husband. We eat lunch, we walk our dog, I try to wrap up the workday around 4:30 when I can, get in a workout, eat dinner, and then we kind of sit down at night. We walk the dog again and then watch TV. So with all that said, I feel like it doesn't leave a lot of time for the small business. So it's like, where do you put that in? And typically I will squeeze it in the mornings. If I have a lot of orders to pack, I'll go downstairs a little bit earlier. I'll spend about 30 minutes packing orders. Um, if I've got a lot of designs I got to do or just emails I need to respond to, I'll multitask and do that while we're watching TV because it's something that doesn't need like dedicated attention. Like I can watch a show in the background. Me and my husband can chat, and I can draw on my iPad and answer emails. If I'm like got a lot of orders, I will take time on the weekends. I'll get up, I still get up at 6:15. I'll have breakfast. I go downstairs. Maybe I'll pack orders for 2 or 3 hours. If I've got a busy weekend, I squeeze it in where I can. It's all about finding the free time and finding realistic ways to multitask.
I love that because last night, sitting in front of my TV watching Murderbot with my husband, I handed him a stack of, I'm making, they're like acrylic street signs from a laser for my shop. And I handed him a stack and I was like, okay, you can make signs and I can make signs. And we just made signs while watching TV. Like, doesn't really change the dynamic of watching TV. You just have something to do with your hands. It's better than being on your phone, I think.
I am also an early riser and very structured in my day. So same thing. And I always found when I did work a full-time job, those early morning hours were the time I squeezed in for my side hustle type of thing every single morning, like you said. And it doesn't matter if you're not an early riser, if you are the person that stays up until midnight, then you probably squeeze it in then. But you just find those small chunks of time, like you said, and all those little small chunks of time can add up to something amazing. It can add up to over 100 stickers in your shop that you're selling all the time and this amazing side income just with a few hours that you're able to snatch out of your day here and there. All right, next question. What are 3 things you define as your keys to success in balancing a full-time job and growing your small business? And do you feel like you've created that balance you're looking for, or are you still struggling?
I would say first and foremost is organization and to-do list. I used to do this Monday morning spiel on Instagram and I probably should get back to it. And it was just like telling people to like, get up, wash your face, put on your moisturizer, get some liquids in your body, make your breakfast, do your to-do list. And I think it's like, for me, I have to have a to-do list for myself, for my business, and for my full-time job. So I always start my week off like that. And then I always reevaluate halfway through the week and figure out what do I need to punt. I have a to-do list literally sitting right here for the business that has been the same 4 things for like 3 weeks that I just haven't been able to get to. But when I reevaluated, I needed to punt them. Organization is key for me. I love Excel, so I do a lot of things in Excel. I've got a lot of different ways I take notes depending on what things are. Like I use a note for design ideas. So I'm not trying to scramble to write them down. I'm just like, got an idea, go right to my phone. I know what to do every time I have a new design idea because I don't want to lose those things. The second thing for me is saying no. I've turned down projects because I haven't had time or they just didn't align with me and the business and where I wanted to be. But I've also turned down plans with friends because I needed to spend time on the small business, or I just needed to like mentally reset and just like not be around people. That sounds harsh, but it's all about prioritizing like what's important to you in that time of your life. And then the third thing is realistic expectations. So when I started this, because I had so much free time, I wanted to do everything and I wanted to make every possible product. I was like, I got this one design, I'm going to put it on everything. And then I was like, whoa, it doesn't work like that. So I needed to step back and focus on things that made sense from a monetary point of view, but also from like a time point of view. Like if I don't have the time to do it, I just can't. But it's hard in the beginning to be honest and open with yourself about what's realistic. And it's kind of like like a muscle you have to flex and use over and over again. So as long as you just keep doing it and check yourself, I think it's good. But those are really the three things that I think I live and breathe by. Um, the last thing you said is about balance. And I would say at this point in my life, I feel well balanced between the small business and my full time job. I would not say I would have answered that the same probably 6 months ago. So, all of that to say is that things change and sometimes you'll be balanced and sometimes you won't be balanced, but the road to balance can be longer than you would think. It's not going to happen overnight. You need to do these little small sustainable changes.
Once you achieve balance, it may not always be that way. I feel like generally my life is pretty balanced, but right now I'm insanely busy just because a whole bunch of things came together. We're running a camp and I have a craft fair and it's the end of the school year and all of these different things like came together and converged to this like, oh, I do not have a good work-life balance right now at all. And so to not get like discouraged or worried that this is going to last forever, I just keep telling myself we just have to get through this weekend and then we can reevaluate, figure out what's going on.
That is so true. When I said I might be a few minutes late, is because my boss and I were on a call and she was like, you got a lot on your plate. What do we need to get it off your plate? Because this week I'm probably not balanced, feeling a bit chaotic, but next week it'll be fine.
Exactly. It's like I think the more time you can spend balanced, great, but it's never going to be like perfectly balanced. All right. So how do you protect your time and energy? Because there's only so much of it. And are there any boundaries or anything like that that you've had to put in place so that you can protect that time, your energy, your capacity, all of that?
Yeah, I think this goes back to the second point about saying no. I'm a yes person by nature. I definitely get FOMO, but I realized I can't do everything and I can't be everything for everyone. So sometimes I just need to stay at home and bury my head in a book, or sometimes I just need to like binge Netflix with no other responsibilities. I would say something else that was hard to do, but I've done a lot better job with as an adult is I've become very selective about who I get close with. Um, I will not forget my dad telling me at one point in my life that my number of close friends I could count on one hand. And I was like, Dad, that's crazy talk. That's never going to happen. I have so many friends. And the older I've gotten, I realized, it really is about the quality of your friends and not the quantity. And having good people around you keeps your energy really good. I have been fortunate enough to meet a lot of people that match my energy, and keeping them around definitely keeps me level-headed. I will say with work, my work-life balance is a lot better now than it's ever been. I have very strong boundaries. I don't let people at work push me around. I set very clear expectations when I get a project about what time I need to feel comfortable to turn around quality work, because I don't want to feel rushed and give them garbage. I want to stand behind the data that I turn around. So I'm pretty good with that. I'm not a workaholic. If the work needs to get done and it's a realistic thing to do, I will definitely put in the hours and the extra hours that I need to do to get it done. I'm not going to work 60, 70 hours a week. Something is off kilter if that's happening. That's a bigger conversation above my pay grade at my job. You know what I mean?
But I also feel like the protecting your time and energy, the things you talked about your day, like getting up, walking the dog, reading, like you had those times in there where it wasn't all just work and you had sort of that balance. And I feel like that helps to protect your energy a little bit as well, just to schedule in things like that helps you mentally during the day, and not just working all the time. Especially, I feel like we tend to do that as entrepreneurs, number one, but especially if you are doing this in the margins, because you are, doing your full-time job and then you think every single minute of spare time outside of that needs to be towards your hustle or your side hustle. And it doesn't necessarily need to be that. You need to have a little balance in there to protect your energy and mental health.
One of the things we could talk about here too is this also works if you're a parent of young kids. I feel like parents of young kids at home often have to work in the margins. So it's like the kids are their full-time job. I remember when my boys were little that I would get up at like 4 a.m. because those hours were so precious to me, because they were like my work hours, and I would work from like 4, and then my husband would get them up and take them to preschool. And I could work from like 4 until 1 when I had to pick them up preschool or whatever. And that was like a full day that I was able to like kind of squeeze in there with, getting up super early, making that pact with my husband to take the boys to preschool, and then I could pick them up, and then I could be a parent after that. And so I think that no matter what kind of margins you have, we're kind of talking about the same thing here. Like it could be a full-time job, could be caregiving for a relative. It could be, a lot of things where we don't have a full-time day to work on our small businesses. So I'm hoping that people who have kids or other responsibilities are also seeing that the margins are possible.
All right. Do we want to commercial break real quick?
Do it.
Okay. So this episode is brought to you by Kittle. And if you are looking for new designs for your next project, Kittle has an amazing deal for you. And trust me, you don't want to miss this. If you've tried Kittle before, you are going to want to try them again, especially if you're struggling with finding amazing designs, even like doing transformation, text into shapes, adding texture to your project. All those like vector editing tools they have now. It is an amazing program, and they just keep adding things and it keeps getting better.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about Kittle is we've used it for years, and like every month, I feel like they come out with something new and interesting. And as somebody who loves to work in vector files, that's me. It is fun to be able to have the control and capacity to like actually mess with the designs themselves. And I think Kittle does that really well.
So you can sign up right now at link.craftingcamps.com/Kittle, and that's KITTL. And you can actually use our code, and it's code CFP, all capitals, for 25% off all Kittle plans if you're a new user. So if you're a new user, be sure to use that code and save some money in the process. All right, back to our questions. So, Jamie, can you tell us a little bit about a time you've had to pivot your business to achieve that balance that you desired? What changed? Did you struggle a little bit with the decision? Like, let us know all those details.
This is a good one. And I have a great example. So I used to do markets, like in-person markets. I loved them. It was a great way to get out in the community. It was a great way to meet other businesses, to meet people that are supporting me. Because now it's kind of all on Instagram, unless I happen to be shopping at a market that they're at as well. Markets were so hands-on. I love designing the booths. I love like making my displays, all of that. But slowly, it's just started to be a very big time suck for me. If anybody's done markets, they know there's so much prep work. You have to do a dry run of your setup to make sure everything is right. You have to count your inventory. You have to pack everything up. Then you have to get to the market and you have to set up your booth. My husband would have to come help me set up because one, couldn't fit everything in my car, and two, I just couldn't do it in 2 hours to get ready. Then you run the market for 4 to 6 hours, even longer, and you're in crazy weather conditions. You never know if it's going to be super windy, and then you have to make your stuff not blow over in the wind. And then at the end of the day, you got to pack it all up. You have to come home. You have to count your inventory again. You have to unpack everything. And then you kind of got to plan your restock because now you've sold out of things. So it's an all-day affair that starts the day before and then carries over into the next day. Because honestly, I didn't want to do anything when I got home. I was like, please don't talk to me. I just want to sit here and it be quiet. One, I was asking my husband to give up some of his time. Not that he doesn't support me. He fully does. Just for me personally, I felt bad having it can you keep your Saturday mornings for me? Maybe you can't go biking because you have to come with me. And then I wasn't able to hang out with my friends on the weekends because one market took my whole weekend. And that wasn't the balance that I was looking for. My personal life was very important to me and still is. So I needed to make a pivot away from markets. And that was a really hard decision because markets are great margins because you're selling directly to your end customer. So I needed to find some way to offset that income. And for me, it was wholesale. But as we all know, wholesale comes with much lower margins than like direct to consumer. So it was a long road to one, get into wholesale, figure out the logistics of wholesale, because now you got to get mass produced items. If some of your items are handmade, you've got to like prep them ahead of time so you're not selling out. And then you've got to find the people to buy from you, right? Like if you're selling one sticker direct to a customer, you need to sell 2 to 3 wholesale just to make up the same amount of money. So um, it was just something that I decided would still take a lot of time and commitment up front, but in the long run, it would be worth it. And I would be able to reap the benefits down the road. And that's kind of where I'm at right now is, it took me about a year or so to get my wholesale up and running. But now it's the bread and butter of my business. The largest bucket of revenue for me comes from wholesale. And I'm glad I stopped doing markets aside from getting out there and meeting people. But if I were to like evaluate how I feel with my time and where I put it, I like where it's at now.
This is really interesting to me because I feel like for my crafty small business side hustle, I feel like I'm at the like transition phase of that right now. Because I'm doing a 3-day market this weekend, which is just going to be very long. And I was so excited about it. And now it's going to rain. And I'm like, "Ugh, great." I'm just not super excited about it. But I still enjoy doing them because I like getting out into the community, all these things. And then I'm also building my wholesale business because I can see that doing markets it's just not as sustainable for me. I still may do like 1 or 2 really good markets a year, if that might still work for me. But I can already feel like, okay, the prep for the market, everything that's going into it, when I could be spending this time building my wholesale list or working on new products or all of these things, I can definitely feel that I'm in that transition that you talk about.
I feel like it's tough though, right? It's tough to make that decision. Like, how do you pull the trigger and just like something that's making you money and you pull back? And this is no matter what it is that you feel like you need to pivot away from to something else. It's still like making that decision. We do have a whole podcast episode, however, on pivoting within your business. So be sure to check out that episode if you feel like you're at that point where you need to pivot your business.
I think with something like this too, you can pivot sort of in phases, right? You can say, okay, instead of doing a market every weekend, I'm going to do 2 a month. Then I'm going to do 1 a month. And then I'll just do the big Christmas one every year or something like that, where it's like you can like taper off. There's other pivots, when you're like, I'm not going to keep my full-time job anymore and I'm going to go to working on my own or whatever. Those pivots are harder to do, in like a transition. But some of these you can just be like, okay, I'm going to sort of slowly pivot from one thing to another.
And it could be like you keep a couple, like you said, just to meet people, right? So you don't even think of those as money makers, but more of like networking opportunities. So you could say, like, I'm going to do 2 markets a year, very exclusive, just to like network, branch out, meet other vendors, that type of thing. So it could be something where you pivot, but you keep a little bit of it for another reason, or even your sanity, maybe just to make friends.
Yeah. I mean, I've made so many friends at craft fairs. Some of my best friends here I've made at craft fairs. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to give that entirely up.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, It's just once you make the decision, there's going to be bumps along the way. You got to stick with it and you got to see it through.
Absolutely. Okay. So I like this question, how I've worded it, because obviously we have all felt this way. Have you ever experienced burnout? Who has not experienced burnout? But what helped you come back from the burnout that I'm almost positive you have experienced?
I definitely have experienced burnout. I will say it starts almost all the time for me because it's so much on my plate at my full-time job. It's very rarely something that I can feel building up because of my small business. Honestly, just taking a break. It sounds like that's the last thing you want to do when you want to focus so much on your business, but taking a break allows for mental clarity. So I put my shop on vacation every time I actually go on vacation. Like I just went to North Carolina for a week and a half. I put my shop on vacation for 2+ weeks before and after to give myself a buffer because like I didn't want to go into it with all of this like on my plate and I didn't want to come home with all this other stuff to do. But I think that's a great thing to do when you feel this burnout coming on. Just pause, pump the brakes, put your business, maybe don't get on Instagram. I do social media breaks or I lessen my appearance on social media when I'm starting to feel the buildup of it. And it helps. Sometimes I just feel not creative either, which I don't know if it's a type of burnout, but I sometimes feel like it could be an after effect of it. And then when I get there, I like to just make stuff for fun. there's something that's so refreshing being able to create something without the intent to sell it. And then you don't have this like rigor around it having to be perfect for resale. It's just like fun to create and you kind of get to go back to your roots. And I think that is what really like fills my cup and gets me excited again once I've coming out of burnout.
You sound just like Angie. Angie does the exact same thing. She's like, look at what I'm crafting for fun. I walk away entirely. I'm like, I'm going to go like not go in my craft room for a while.
So on that subject, recently I went to Painting with a Twist for like a girls' night, and it was bookish themed, of course, because that's my other life is books. But it was one of those things, like you said, it was where I was creating, being creative, no intention of doing anything with it, but it was just the creative outlet and having fun with it. And that is sort of a way for me to deal with burnout is to just like, okay, I'm just going to make something. Doesn't matter what it is, just kind of get creative, get messy. And it also takes a little bit of the stress of creating because I feel like we put a lot of stress on the creative portion when it's your business, right? So you want to get it right the first time because you don't want to mess it up because that costs you money, that costs you time. And if you're not worried about that end product, it takes a lot of the stress and lets you like just get into the creativity of it and kind of where you started. So it's kind of going back to your roots a little bit.
And one more thing I was thinking was that I feel like people who have a full-time job and a part-time job think of that as like all negatives, right? Like it's like there's like nothing good about this situation. However, you can put your Etsy shop on vacation and go on vacation from your work and you're just on vacation. Whereas those of us who are working full-time for our creative businesses have a harder time doing that because that is all of our income, right? But you're still getting vacation time or whatever you have from your regular job, and it allows you to take a break more easily, I think, from your, side hustle. And I think that that's something that is actually a silver lining of this type of arrangement.
All right. So, what advice would you give to someone who feels stuck in their job and isn't sure how to find that time for their business? So, isn't sure how to pull out those hours?
So I would say that first off, just understand that life is seasonal and seasons shift. So just because you don't feel like you have the time right now doesn't mean that that's not going to change in the future. I'm a big proponent of seasons in life and everything. It changes, maybe more than the 4 seasons we're supposed to have. Maybe your season is every month it changes, and that's okay. If you really, really feel like you need to find the time in your business, I'm going to call it a time audit. And the best way to see what your time looks like is just to pull up. Like you're in the weeds so much. If you can just take a few minutes to pull up, map out your day, like how I said, I get up at 6:15, I start work at 8. Even if you just write that down, I think it'll become so apparent where you have these little blocks of time that you can actually start to squeeze things in. And I think it's a great summary of everything we've talked about, because I think we've all mentioned a moment where we've been like, oh, I take 30 minutes here and I take 30 minutes there. But if you just look at it from like a bird's eye view, I think you'll really start to see it. And then look at tasks that you're doing that you could maybe start to multitask in. And we all said it, right? We're watching TV, we're packaging ornaments while we're doing it. We're drawing while we're watching TV. There's a lot of opportunities to multitask during your day job. This is probably a terrible example, but like back in the day, smokers got a 15-minute smoke break, right? I'm going to take my smoke break, but I'm going to pack orders. And it's okay to take a 15-minute break from your full-time job because you need to reset yourself during the day there too. And if you feel like you're crunched on time, use that quick little break to do something for your business. Maybe it's running to the post office to drop off the mail. It could be something as simple as that. Then you no longer have that sitting over your head as a task that you feel like you need to do. So it'll lift a weight off of your shoulders as well. But the time audit, I swear by it.
I have a couple thoughts. One is one of the ways I find really helpful to group my task list, like my to-do list, is by the amount of time or brain it might take up. So I do have like, these are tasks that I could do if I have 15 minutes. Like if I just have 15 minutes, like, I can't sit down and edit a video in 15 minutes. Angie might be able to, I am not able to. So, I have to find those tasks. I'm like, okay, well, I could, cut apart all of these transfers that I'm going to use to make tote bags, or I could make this phone call so I can have this appointment, or I could shoot off this one email, or whatever it is. I have like a little like short task list that I find really helpful for those margins. And then I wanted to say too that we actually recorded another podcast about an hour before yours, and we had, I think, about 45 minutes in between, maybe half an hour in between. And I made 15 tote bags because I was like, okay, I have so much to do. I cannot waste this 30 minutes. So I ate lunch, and while my press was pressing, I was shoving lunch in my face, and then I was opening up the press and putting the new tote bag in. So I feel like whatever those hours are, whatever those little time minutes are, you can use them. Don't just scroll on your phone or, that sort of thing. So our final question for you, it's like, what's one thing that you wish people knew about working full time and having a side hustle?
It's a lot, and we do make a lot of sacrifices along the way. Sometimes it's hard to see that because people will tell you social media is your highlight reel. And a lot of times people do use it for that. And I don't think a lot of us small businesses talk as openly about it. But we're definitely making sacrifices along the way to be able to do both of these things. And then you got to be realistic with yourself. We're hard on ourselves. We put a lot on our plate. We take full ownership of everything, right? It's our small business. But I think we try to be as realistic as we can. But these small businesses, they're our babies, they're our kids. So, it makes it that much more special, but also creates that much more stress on us.
Yeah, I think it's harder than it looks a lot of times. So you often see the successful people that have done this successfully. You don't see all the failures. So you don't see all those people that tried and failed. But I don't want people to get discouraged by that, because there is room for success, right? You can do this. There's room for success, but it's challenging. It's a ton of work. And there are probably more failures at doing this type of business than there are successes. Just all the people that, give it a try and then give it up and are like, no, this is not for me. I cannot do this in my margins.
Yeah. And I think that's okay. I think that we all have to make our decisions, and the people who sort of rise to the top are the people that are kind of made to do it. And the other people are made to do something else. And that's totally fine. I mean, there are so many things that I am really not capable of that other people are really good at. We're talking to a finance manager, and I literally don't even know what that is. And there's a reason for that. I was an English major. I studied publishing. There's things that we're good at, and there's things that we're not good at. So I think that, remember, like if you're having too hard of a time, it's okay to just say, this isn't for me as well. If you really want to make it work, you'll make it work. But if you're just like, this is killing me, then, maybe it's time to try something else.
I would say too, to raise your hand. If you're feeling like you're drowning with it, reach out to people. So one of the best things that I've done, and now I just haven't had time to, but I had a group of small businesses, and we got on the Zoom or G meeting or whatever, and we just chatted for an hour. We had one where we talked about social media and things that we could do. And it was just because some of us felt like we were drowning. So we raised our hand. Find a community. It's like you have coworkers at work. Find your coworkers in the small business place, and you would be surprised at how much people will let you lean on them, and they'll be there to support you. Like, the small business community is probably the best community that I've been very fortunate to be a part of. But yeah, raise your hand, ask for help. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I feel like another thing that people don't realize is how isolating it is, especially as you start to get successful and you're like, I'm going to give up my full-time job. I'm going to do this all the time from home. That's my dream. And then you're like, boy, I have 0 coworkers. It is me at home all the time. So yeah, building a community is something that both of us are very passionate about. And yes, a podcast episode coming very soon on that very important topic.
We are very excited about this episode about community, because we feel like that is absolutely one of the things that people ask us the most about. Like, how do I find my coworkers? All right. Before we go, Jamie, you have a special offer for us. Can you go ahead and share what you have for us?
Yes. First, I just wanted to take this real quick moment just to say thank you so much for letting me be on the show. I'm very happy to be here. And if anybody wants to chat and slide into my DMs, you're more than welcome to. But as a special thank you for letting me be here, for listening, I created a quick little code that'll get you 15% off your offer.
You can use the coupon code crafting for profit, and that's all one word, at link.craftingcamps.com/Jami Creates, and that's JAMI CREATES. And you can get 15% off your entire order through 8/30/2025. And we will put the link as well as the coupon code in the description below the video, as well as in the podcast notes.
Jami, thank you so much for being here today. We had such a nice time chatting with you. I know this is going to be an episode that a lot of people are going to listen to because I think this is absolutely one of the struggles or one of the situations that many, many small businesses find themselves in. So I think you had a lot of really good advice for us here, and I'm really excited for people to listen.
So be sure to check out Jami's shop, even if you just go to see all her amazing sticker designs. I mean,
She's got crabs. I mean, it sounds bad, but like the girl is so from Maryland, you would not even believe.
if cute stickers are your jam, this is going to be the shop for you. So if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow business owner. If you know someone that is working a full-time job and also trying to start their side hustle, this is the episode that you need to send to them right now. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.